Hello, everyone. Al Brown, President and CEO of SmartWAVE Technologies, here with another exciting podcast around the wireless buffet. And today, I am very glad and proud to have with me on this podcast, Walter Orell, our Senior Vice President of Engineering at SmartWAVE. Walter, how about a brief intro?
Hello, Al. Hey, thank you for that. So I'm Walter Orell, VP of Technology with SmartWAVE, and we're if you haven't heard about SmartWAVE, we're a wireless centric integrator.
Sounds great. Well, let's get started on this podcast, Walter.
All right.
Walter, you've been with SmartWAVE since 2007, right?
Yeah,
and
since the beginning.
Since the beginning. Few changes over that period of time.
Gotten a little bigger. I've gotten to know multitasking better.
Well, that's great. That's great. And as far as like some of the things going on since that time, I mean, outdoor wireless networks, we've done a lot of that over the last year with the digital divide programs. But it wasn't something that we started last year, was it, Walter?
No, not at all. I mean, we started back in 2.4 meshing only with Tropos, and the capacity of that filled up pretty quickly. And now we're pushing on all frequencies.
Yeah. So over that time, Walter, what are some of the challenges or changes to the offering public wireless?
I'd say some of the biggest differences is the adoption and what people are using wireless for. It started for, free Wi-Fi. This is great. I can check my email on the road or at a hotspot or at a cafe. And now there's an expectation that you're always connected. You can stream video, upload, download, and there's really, the user is expecting it to be perfect all the time, every time, and that's what we strive for. And I think we help our customers provide this as a service.
So with that, when you talk about the users expecting perfection, when we deploy these large scale or even Wi-Fi networks within a city hall or within a hospital, what have you, it's always the access point, right? I mean, you hear a lot, the Wi-Fi doesn't work, but it's a pretty complex system, correct? You want to kind of share some of the horror stories or some things that we find, and especially in like high density capacity environments or public, just some things you sometimes run into?
We definitely see, we work with a lot of customers who, they have a wired background. So they think, they just don't know the nuances of the RF interference and capacity. Physics is what physics is. There's only so much airtime to go around. And a lot of the customers that we work with, they take their, wired topology and network background, and they expect, if it's wireless, it just magically, it just needs to work. And the analysis of, how many clients to how many access points and where they are, they don't often have that expertise. And so it's, SmartWAVE has been able to fill in the gaps and help them overcome some challenges. Some of the changes that I've seen over the years is the adoption, because everyone's using Wi-Fi, everyone's got a hotspot, everyone's tethering from their phone. The noise floor is just increasing over time in the frequencies, and it's been interesting to see. I mean, we do some scanning, drive testing and passive testing, and it collects all the SSIDs. And it's incredible in such a small area, driving down a street in whether you're in a downtown or out in the suburbs, just how many SSIDs you pick up. I mean, I have these databases full of thousands and thousands of entries, and it's incredible. Just how many networks are out there.
It is amazing. I'd say that's one of the things I've kind of really come to appreciate from from you and your team, and just the design process that you go through behind that, especially in the outdoor environment. I mean, fixed channel planning. Fixed channel planning around 3 radios is one thing, right? Fixed channel planning around 3,000 radios is an environment is a totally different thing. So, I mean, have there been like best practices developed, and what kind of changes do you have occurred like with the engineering role in these networks?
Well, one of the lessons that we've learned over the years is the upfront defining the requirements of the network and what the expectation is paramount. Because, just, this building needs Wi-Fi. That's not good enough. You need to define how many users, where are they, what are they going to be doing? Are they all FaceTiming and streaming or checking their email? And narrowing in on those requirements leads us to finding the right solution, into whether it's AP placement, AP capacity. That's one thing that I've always loved about SmartWAVE, is that we are vendor agnostic, and we let the scenario lead us to the right choice for the customer. And often, it starts off with, just asking questions and trying to push the customer into really determining, sometimes helping them determine what is it you're trying to do. But that defining the requirements, whether it's an outdoor point-to-point link or a Wi-Fi, coverage for clients inside or outside a building, is definitely the starting point. And I think customers, their knowledge level has been increasing. We definitely, work with some very astute customers that know exactly what they want, and are it's been a pleasure to work with.
So with with being vendor agnostic, right? Even that being said, I know we have some favorites, right? I mean, at the end of the day, right? We want the client experience to be a good experience, right? And I know one of those favorites is Ruckus Wi-Fi. We've been working with Ruckus since 2009. Can you kind of share some of the things that we find in that product set and why we use it?
No, absolutely. Ruckus is absolutely one of my favorites. And we probably use in 80-90% of our deployments. And it's usually, when we don't, it's because the customer they have to match their current environment. The easy answer is of course the BeamFlex technology is unparalleled in the outdoor space as well as the indoor space, but it's much more easy to see in the outdoor space because you can see, because of the environmental differences, signals bouncing off stuff. One of the first Ruckus radios I ever had, I got a kit, and I brought it home and I set it up, and I was mapping out and trying to see what the throughput will be in my home lab. And sure enough, I walked to the end of the driveway, and I saw, the signal level is, when you first connect, maybe 1 or 2 bars on the phone, and then after you connect, you can see the beam forming go to 5 bars, and
wow.
Throughput tests to prove that it's not just marketing hype, it actually works.
Wow.
And that was years ago. and now you can see that in a dense environment like a convention center or an airport, on just looking at everyone streaming and downloading with hundreds of devices, and log into the smart zone to prove the actual throughput. And now, of course, we have APs that have a 5 gig wired backhaul, and they're using it.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see.
And when you talk about that, like some of those environments, as far as like the challenging environments, right? I mean, eventually, the technology Wi-Fi, and we do a lot of Wi-Fi along with other wireless technologies, but with respect to Wi-Fi, it is unlicensed spectrum, so you don't have the same control that Carrie would have over the technology. But knowing that eventually Wi-Fi will break, what kind of best practices do you look at for, say, designing in a convention center like the San Jose Convention Center? We've had some crazy kind of events there that would really hammer a network and just destroy it, right?
Yep.
Based on the usage. Right. You want to talk to some of those events and how we went about some of the things, or your team went about some of these things?
one of the big initial, I'd say not game changing, but changes that we did to the traditional design was we actually used outdoor radios inside in the big exhibit halls at the convention center. So this exhibit hall, you can have thousands of people in this exhibit hall, and by using an outdoor radio that was a sectorized radio with a 30-degree beam hanging from the rafters, we were able to reduce the co-channel interference because, as you know, in Wi-Fi, there's only so many channels. So adding more radios, you hit a ceiling where even if you've used all the 5 gig channels, there's only so much capacity but by having the sectorized antennas, the cone that was coming down from the ceiling is pretty limited to the area on the floor. And we found that was the way to get to the next level, so that when these corporate events, previously that, the big Apples and NVIDIAs and would come in and bring in tripods and mount APs everywhere. And instead they're using the infrastructure, the APs that we deployed in the convention center, which is unlike other big productions where normally these big convention centers, they're dragging their feet on the latest and greatest technology.
Yeah, that's great. So you basically forced RF isolation.
Exactly.
To free up more channels. That's fantastic.
And on the 2.4 side, we abandoned it. We said, hey, if it's now it's
3 channels. That's it.
You should have a device that supports 5 gig. It's time to move on. Yeah. So, and I look forward to the next iteration, open up even more frequencies.
When talking about some of the types of clients we have, I know we have high density clients like the San Jose Convention Center, the airport, and so forth. And we've done a number of other types of events and convention centers. But one of our big client bases is smart cities, right? We've been catering to smart city clients since our founding in 2007. What are some of the unique challenges in working with government IT, and how has your team helped the clients overcome these challenges?
I touched on it a little bit before. The governments, they typically have an IT staff built around a wired network to support the office environment, and connecting to desktops, running Windows servers, et cetera. And what we do is we bring our wealth of knowledge about wireless, both indoor and out, to help them expand. SmartWAVE has been great about coming to a customer that maybe they have fiber assets from their Department of Transportation. Maybe they have streetlights. Maybe they have a relationship with a streetlight company, and really, starting with a clean slate, map out everything. What are your assets? What can we work with to provide the most cost-effective solution? We don't just come in and say, hey, here's the way it has to be done. You have to use, this backhaul and these radios. And instead we like, okay, what do you have, and how can we best augment that? And because they don't normally have much experience with, outdoor Wi-Fi, it helps, it helps to augment their team and to really integrate into, to help educate them. They educate us oftentimes on the nuances of their wired infrastructure. And I'd say it's easy to talk about broadband Wi-Fi or community Wi-Fi and the effectiveness and the value it brings to people that can have free Wi-Fi in impoverished areas often, or kids that are, because of the pandemic, stuck at home and have to be on Zoom calls. But the boring stuff, the connecting to traffic controllers and sensors and all these smart things that city do, that's exciting too. And to see a transportation engineer, to show them how we can connect to a remote site or a water sensor to monitor the water level in a creek to tie into their system and tell when flooding might happen. They get really excited about it, and it's neat to be to help bring all of these teams from a city, whether it's the transportation, the water guys, the community redevelopment guys, everybody wants connectivity in the end, and to help, make some stars out of the IT department and let them take all the credit it's very rewarding, because you really get some great customers.
Yeah, the last year, I think about some of these digital divide programs that we were involved in Oakland, Council Bluffs, San Jose, Hidalgo County, County of San Mateo. I mean, the list goes on, right? But hearing the stories, it's like every time I talk to a customer, they tell me some new story about, I saw, like John Stiles in Council Bluffs. I heard about this story the other day when we had Lafayette visiting, and they said, yeah, I saw a girl, or there was a teacher that was driving by the house, and there was a girl that was sitting outside in the rain with her laptop so she could get connectivity to the community Wi-Fi network. And I mean, that just had such an impact to where John Style, the CIO, is like, SmartWAVE, let's find a location we can install an AP closer to her house, so she can get better connectivity.
Yeah. And even before the pandemic, it was rewarding to hear stories about, folks that were able to, that couldn't afford cable, or they were able to cut the cord, and it was such a big part of their budget. And now their kids are entertained with, free Netflix or PBS videos. And, it really makes a difference. And I think Wi-Fi is, after this pandemic, everyone can see it's not just some fun thing. It's a utility. It's up there with power and water, as far as, people using it every day on whether it's applying for jobs or being on school.
It is. And that's one thing too, I mean, every technology has pros and cons associated with it, right? And it's a really exciting time to be in this business with wireless, because you especially through the pandemic, it's like this digital equity problem isn't something new, right? I mean, we've worked with city customers since 2007 trying to overcome it, right? I mean, funding was always a challenge, right? I mean, some of these we started in 2014 on large scale with Council Bluffs and East San Jose in 2017, so we were ready for that. But tell me about like last year when we had all of these clients coming at one time saying, okay, I need help, SmartWAVE, I need some help with this. And we have a certain process that we follow.
Yep.
I mean, kind of what do you attribute some of our ability to sustain and support so many customers in such a high demand need?
Well, I think we were kind of lucky that we'd been doing this before a pandemic hit with, in our teams and crews, across the country. This was, what we've been doing. And we were able to scale up pretty quickly because we already, we had the tools and the expertise, and it's just, more of the same. And, on the network engineering side, from my Army background, I'd always applied the KISS, keep it simple, stupid protocol. It was something they taught day one in the Army. And as what I love about a lot of the networks that we touch, and especially with Ruckus gear, it's straightforward. It's simple. I mean, I've worked with a lot of vendors over the years, and a lot of vendors have their proprietary this and proprietary that protocols that, you have to talk to their engineers to fully understand, and then we help them work out the bugs. Having a very simple design, for public Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, having client isolation that works, so you can have huge broadcast domains with thousands of clients and not run into broadcast storms or problems. It's been fantastic. The Ruckus data planes is a great simple way to alleviate a lot of security concerns that cities and counties have by just tunneling the traffic across any network, whether it's across the internet to a school district, to a central point with redundancy. So I think when the pandemic hit, we just kept doing more of the same, and knowing, not introducing new changes to our methods, or oh, let's go experiment with the new technology, but let's stick with what was tried and tested, made a big difference.
It did. I mean, our process, that is one thing we're bullish about. But tell me about some of the tools, the uniqueness of some of the tools that we use that might be different from a traditional Wi-Fi or network integrator.
I imagine not all network integrators have the in-depth RF analysis that we have, bringing tools like EDX in the planning process. It's a very expensive RF modeling tool that Verizon or big wireless companies use to model to the various frequencies. That bringing that and then getting real world results to prove that, oh yes, our model is accurate, and it's because we model down to the tree. When we start with nothing, we get various sources of data sets to whether it's LiDAR data or otherwise, and it's amazing how much you can do from a desk without going on the ground, before, and that has helped as we scale up, because it's a lot easier for someone to sit and model everything versus drive every street like we used to, and then to get some real world validation that the model is accurate and that the tree foliage is indeed what our prediction was, and the throughput and dB loss is accurate. It allows us at the end of the day to be one and done, to deploy once,
right?
Not keep running back and tweaking things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm learning something every day. Every time I meet with someone from your team, you or someone from your team, and we're going through a process, right? With the client. I remember with Arlington, Juan Leon was the lead RF engineer on that, and Juan had downloaded the LiDAR data for the area, used Global Mapper through our process to extract certain things like power lines are at 50 feet above the ground level that don't impact where the Wi-Fi is, right? Things like that. And then had identified 5 or 6 locations that needed tree trimming. And we hadn't even driven through the neighborhood. So it was kind of cool. As we were stepping through the process, Juan said, hey, let me bring up what tools we're talking about. And he stepped through with Public Works on those tree trimming locations. And the Public Works guys were like, oh yeah, that's New York and Park. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, those trees have been a pain, right, for overhead power lines, right? We need to address that, So it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Giving better Wi-Fi and at the same time eliminating risk from storms, right, of a tree coming down or a limb or something like that. So on the power lines. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I'm trying to think of as far as like over the years, right? You think about how Wi-Fi has changed over the years, but and at that same time, in the license spectrum with carriers, the carrier technology has evolved from 3G to 4G and now 5G, and 5G now touting greater bandwidth, right? I've had some clients ask me, well, we don't need Wi-Fi anymore. We have 5G. What are your some of the thoughts on that technically?
On the technical side, I mean, honestly, when I upgraded my phone to a 5G capable iPhone, my throughput at home, off the Wi-Fi decreased, and it's the 5G coverage is much smaller, and these cell phone companies, you can't get around, the physics of it, the footprints. They can't just flip a switch. It's one thing to replace radios and upgrade them, but you can't flip a switch and double the density. They have to install more. And in residential areas, you don't see these companies building twice as many towers to switch from 4G to 5G. At the same time, the consumption is just increasing exponentially. And I there's no, it's hard to compete with your home Wi-Fi. and your the local small cell backhaul. I think cellular is great, but you gotta pay a monopoly for it.
Yeah.
and, and you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But I personally, I mean, there's always, you can, a Verizon ad or a AT&T ad, they'll cherry pick some maps and show coverage, and certainly it's an improvement in some areas. But when you're inside and you have capacity and everybody wants low latency and connect with their home printer, Wi-Fi is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about, some of the stuff that like a traditional like network expert or someone like that does wired networking, right? In wireless, frequency equates to bandwidth,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and when I look at a carrier spectrum, like if AT&T has 150 megahertz of spectrum, that equates to so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
So even if you go from one technology to another that can bond channels or that can do more MIMO, like massive MIMO or what have you, you've still got 150 megahertz that will equate to certain throughput. When I look at Wi-Fi and 5 gig, that's almost 1,000 megahertz available. And then with Wi-Fi 6E, I mean,
it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah. That is, I know we've talked about this. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest changes in Wi-Fi since 802.11a, since moving into the 5 gig spectrum. That's probably the largest change in impact. So it'd be great for high density. And I think about stadiums where
it'll be fantastic. I mean, because like the convention center I was mentioning before, or in a dense airport, it's a very careful RF design where at most we're in maybe 40 megahertz on the 5 gig, and can you imagine when every single one of those radios can be in a separate 80 megahertz channel?
Yeah,
and there's no self interference from neighboring APs. I mean, it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So I don't think anyone should be dumping their Wi-Fi radio equipment yet, right? I mean, from a client device. I mean, and that's one thing too, Walter, I've noticed is like when you think about these community wireless broadband networks that we've been building, we have connectivity there. It's not, everything around the press is about accessibility or lack of access or no access, and they're grading on where the need is. It's affordability.
Yeah.
Right. And at least in where we built these networks that really make an impact to the community. Because I'll have coverage from my cell phone in the area, but it's an affordability problem, right? Yeah. And when we do, especially when it's a dense urban environment, doing mesh Wi-Fi, the client cost of acquisition is zero because they already have a Wi-Fi radio. Yep. It's technology that they use at school, they use at their workplace. It's a technology they're familiar with, so the support cost is extremely low from a client touching standpoint, right? I think what San Jose gets 5 calls a year or something like that from the community of wireless broadband.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, and I do think that the public is a lot smarter than they used to be. It's like it used to, when you and I, before SmartWAVE, were involved with another company that first deployed mesh Wi-Fi in Mountain View.
Yeah,
and there was a elaborate Q&As telling people how to connect to Wi-Fi, what everything they need to do, and all these questions, and there were always problems and people asking, they just weren't ready. And now, everyone has Wi-Fi at home, so it's, when you go to the airport, you know how to, what to connect and how to troubleshoot and turn it off and turn it on again if you need to. And it's, I gave my my kids get hand-me-down cell phones, and I just put them in airplane mode, and it turns off the cellular feed, and that's all they need, because you got Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah. I tell you, over the years, we've been blessed and fortunate to have some, growth and an increase in market share and everything. And what are some of the challenges that you've seen that we've had and how we've overcome those challenges?
I think just like typical companies in growth, as you get bigger, it's harder to to just move into more. Oh, okay, we need more of a strict management structure and more more corporate like controls.
Yeah.
And I think it's a typical growth thing in any small company. I think we're the right size to help, or it's not the size, it's the relationships that I think push us to the next level with the customers. And I think we've always, it's easy when you're a really small company and they see, they interact with the CEO and the engineer and the technician and, have all the FaceTime, and you can give all the customers 100% of the attention that they have time for. And as you grow, you gotta, delegate and divide up a little bit. But I think we've been able to maintain that relationship first, to build that trust and, and execute from it.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. We are a very relationship-based company. That's well put. I think that's part of our culture, right? In our hiring process, when we vet out individuals, it's not necessarily, you don't have to be the brightest person, right, in the interview process, but you got to have a sense of humor. You got to be someone that, you can go to battle with, right? Because it can be stressful at times with deadlines and so forth. But, it's important not to put the culture at risk that we've developed here. And so, it's, we want everyone to come into the office and have a good time at what they're doing. We've had the opportunity to work on some really cool projects, right, together. So you want to maybe share some of the cool projects we've worked on? And
well, working on I personally enjoyed working on it's a point to multipoint network for Laguna Seca Raceway. Yeah. And we provided a backhaul connectivity for a flagging system, and so that they could communicate red light, green light without, to augment the manual flags. And that was fun. We know we've talked about it many times today, but just the work in the San Jose Convention Center has been one of my personal highlights, because it's demanding. Because when Twitch came to San Jose, they assumed things would fail because all of the other Twitch cons had failed from a networking point of view, because they packed that building in, with so many people, and they're all and they're all trying to hack you and trying to break things. And it's a rewarding feeling watching it go off without a hiccup, and seeing the simplicity of the design and the quality of the performance of the products that we use working. And it's exciting.
Yeah, I like to refer that as Twitch without a hitch.
That's perfect.
Yeah, you're right. It's been a good run, and moving forward, as we grow, right? What do you see over the next couple of years as the biggest impact in the marketplace? There's a lot of federal money that's coming down the pipe, right? And there's going to be a lot of people that don't know how what this means or how to go about it, right? What would your advice?
Most of our customers are early adopters. Our cities that had a vision to take this money and go do what all the neighboring counties and cities weren't doing yet. It's always the first network in this state to provide this service, and I think we're going to see, because of the literally billions of dollars coming down from the feds, we're going to see a lot more. Let's do the same. I do think we're going to push into, rather than just deploying APs on the street, that bring Wi-Fi to the doorstep. I think they're going to be more and more hybrid models where we do that to provide, free Wi-Fi for everybody. But people, they might want a radio on their roof, like an augmented or hybrid WISP of some kind, where you're providing a free network. But let's bring radio. Bring a
Have a
radio
pay service to complement it. Yeah.
Exactly. And use other technologies, maybe backhaul technologies, to bring radios, into people's homes to broadcast from inside their home. And I think I won't be surprised if we don't see some movement in that field.
Yeah. Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, we'll come to a close here. Walter, appreciate your time on this podcast of the Wireless Buffet. Great to hear from a seasoned professional on what Wi-Fi is and what it isn't, and some of the challenges and that you've been going through at SmartWAVE. And with that, we'll make it a wrap.
All right. Well, thank you, Al.
Thanks, everyone.